Welcome to QWERTY Writing Life Podcast, where we have candid chats about our creative lives. This is May.
And I'm Joy.
For more information about our podcast, monthly newsletter, or author resource series, visit us at QWERTYWritingLife.com. That's QWERTY, spelled QWERTY.
It's the first 6 letters on your keyboard.
So, are you ready? Grab your tea.
Or your coffee, and let's chat.
Hello, everyone. It's another week.
Hello and welcome.
Tonight, we are going to talk about realistic creatives and who they aren't. So, gotta get that at the end of there, or you're not going to know what we're trying to talk about. But before we talk about those realistic creatives, let's talk about our creative weeks. Hey, Joy, what'd you do?
So this week I have started on first rounds of edits for a client. So you guys know I love that. So I'm pretty excited about, just watching this book transform over the next several months with this amazing, lovely author. So just pretty excited about seeing the process.
Yeah, for sure.
So what about you? Tell me about your creative week.
I am doing, you'll notice my background is a little bit different. So I'm hanging out in Georgia with my dad and my stepmom, and they got a little bit sick, and they just needed a touch of help. They're actually, like, as far as their medication and things like that, I just had to, say, hey, take this, so that I didn't need to, hound them about that. But it was more like the other stuff, like cooking and laundry and sweeping and making sure that things were picked up. Grocery store runs, lots of grocery store runs. Wow, I didn't even, anyway, it's fine. Lots of them. But it has been a really great time to be able to hang out and chit chat with them. I've not really had this length of time alone with them, and probably since I was a kid, like in high school and stuff. So this has been really great to get to know them again on this level, and to be able to be there and help in this capacity. So lots of good things happening there. And then in the meantime, I actually watched one of the videos last night, but I actually started last week with another writer friend, the Writing with Maggie Stiefvater conference. It's actually a seminar, isn't it? Seminar? I know, it was very exciting. So Joy and I did that, and there's episodes about like how to prep for a seminar or a workshop and that sort of thing. And so we put all of those things in practice. We bought the Writing with Maggie Stiefvater seminar, and we went through it together using all of the tactics that we talked about in order to prepare for the workshop. And wow, we were like changed artists, weren't we?
Yes,
like when we came out of that. I really do. There's so much that just happened with that, as far as mindset and like how we think of writing. It kind of transformed us as artists. So what I'm doing with this other friend of mine, she's not been through it before, and so I'm running my novel idea and putting the exercises and the tips and tricks into practice with my novel idea. And she's also doing the same thing, but I kind of get to watch her experience it for the first time, and I get to remember how I felt about all of that at the beginning. So this is pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting. And I think I really am getting it a little bit more, like even now. I think I'm getting it a little bit more, and maybe the next time I run through it, I'll get it a little bit more until eventually it'll be second nature. So I'm very excited about that.
That's super exciting. I'm so excited for both of y'all as you're going through this, and I'm looking forward to when I go through it again. But like you, I plan on going through it with my son.
Oh,
and using it as a teaching tool with him. And I had hoped to do that in the spring, and it just didn't work out time-wise. So maybe this next spring might be really good timing to kind of take him through it, and that'll give me a refresher before it's time for me to start on my fantasy series. And that's the one that I'm gonna like dive deep into this with. So
Yes, it would be so good for that. So good for
yes.
that. I do not know exactly when the sale ends, but it is on sale right now for $25 at Maggie Stiefvater's Etsy shop.
Holy moly.
$25.
That y'all, that is a steal. You better run right now. I mean, I
hmm
don't even like that's just a steal.
That's 75% off of what Joy and I paid for it.
Yeah. And
And
seriously,
so
what we paid for it is like I
was
would
a
have paid
steal.
more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this is the one, the one ring. Okay, this is the one course. Okay. But
I
not in a
really do
bad
think
way.
so.
Hold on. I may need
Yes.
to rethink that, but you get what I
Okay.
mean.
We'll end the metaphor there and then
It is the one course.
honestly, I have been through a ton of courses. Like
Mhm.
I've been through so many courses, and this is one that really resonated with me. This one and Holly Lyle's courses really resonate with me. This one particularly changed my whole mindset about what I think of a novel and like uh, and how everything comes to be.
Well, I think that now we can just kind of dive in.
Yeah, I think that's great. I'm sorry I talked so much about Creative Weeks. I was just excited.
No, I would be too.
So, everyone, if you happen to listen to our last episode, we began this three-part series on realistic creatives, and we talked a little bit about who they are and some of the characteristics that define them, which we'll repeat for you toward the end of this episode. When I was a kid, I remember a game that we would play on car trips. It was like the knot game. Did you happen to play anything like this? Do you know?
No, I don't
Okay.
think so.
Okay. So it was called the knot game. And so whatever the other person was thinking, they'd like have something in their mind. So whatever they were thinking, they would give you hints as to what's not the thing. And so it's like if you're thinking of a bird, the types of hints that you would give would be like this creature does not slither, or the thing I'm thinking about doesn't have hands, things like that. So Joy and I are going to play the knot game with you. but but you're already going to know the answer. So it might not be super fun. Disclaimer. So in this episode, we are going to look at who realistic creatives are not. So let's dive in. First of all, a realistic creative will not be demanding. For instance, a newbie author should not demand to be featured on a panel with expert authors with like decades of experience under their belts. Just because you wrote one book doesn't mean that you're an expert author. And I know that that's hard to like take in sometimes, but we just gotta make some real assessments of who we are and where we are on our creative path. So there was one artist that I followed who posted a screenshot of an email where a brand new artist, and the email had his name blurred out, so nobody will know who he is. But he demanded that she use her hard-earned status to raise him up to her level. And he said that it was her responsibility to do this because she had made this happen for herself. I know, right? He even had like an attachment of the screenplay that he had written. So
That's just
here's
such
the
a
thing.
no-no.
It's so bad.
So
So
bad.
bad. Well, that's like the definition of demanding,
Yeah.
right? Like you must do this because you are this and it's your responsibility to do this. I feel like it's very manipulative as well. Like he's trying to manipulate her, even though he did a very poor job of it. But anyway, the point is don't be like blurred out guy, okay? Be better, man. Work hard and be ready for the right opportunities when they come along. So, that being said, we all have our experiences and perspectives to share at every stage of our journey. So, you want to throw your hat in for opportunities that you're qualified for. So if you have only published one book, then you want to look for maybe a debut author panel, for example. Or if you're a new artist, you want to maybe look for podcasts that you can interview about the artwork that you've already done. So just think of it like this, like kind of close your eyes and imagine this. Um, Imagine yourself holding out your author arms out beside yourself and you're turning a circle. Anything that you can touch, you want to do those things. And as you grow into your rightful artistic giant state of being, and your arms will lengthen and they'll touch other opportunities, and you'll be ready for those at that time.
That's a great way. I love the way that you put that. And, I also love what you said about we should be working hard so that we can be prepared and ready for the right opportunities when they come. And I think that that's super important because you're going to go through seasons, we're going to talk about this later, and we talked about it in the last episode too, about how there's no overnight, it takes many years to become an overnight success. We say that so many times. Everybody says that a lot. But it's so true. And the thing is, those people who suddenly become this overnight success have been preparing for that for all those years, so
Mhm.
it encompasses honing your craft, getting better at the details of your medium, um, and then also just putting yourself out there when opportunities do present themselves and weighing the opportunities as they come, as we'll talk about too. Is this a good opportunity for me or is it not? And there are certain things that we can use to kind of decide that. So all of those things, yes, I loved that you said that, and I really appreciated you mentioning that. But the key word here for what we're talking about right now is to share, to share what we have, to share where we are, but not to demand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really true. And in the same vein, I feel like it's important for us to see the people, not just the opportunity in front of us. So get to know the hosts, become acquaintances with those connected to the opportunity that you want to become a part of. And you can even do this as a budding artist if there's like this goal that like I want to be. In this gallery, or I want to be at this restaurant or something like that, cook at this restaurant or something, I don't know, or on this radio station or whatever it is. Go ahead and start making yourself known there. Start commenting on things if it's an online presence. Start developing, start conversing with the people who are there, and do it enough and consistently to where they kind of know your name a little bit. And as your art gets better and as you work hard, there might be an opportunity for you in there. But what's important is people are people, they're not opportunities. Um, so this does a couple of things. It does two things actually that I can think of right off the top of my head. One, it allows you to make sure that the opportunity aligns with your fundamental standards and your values that you have, and so you know if the opportunity is right for you. And two, even if it's not right for you, maybe you're building this lovely community of like-minded people around you, and that actually might be a whole nother podcast.
Well, add that to the list.
Mhm. But it's true, like just being able to um, get to know somebody on a genuine level that could, open up to opportunities. And if not, then at least you are building this community. It's such a big, I think community is such a big deal. So,
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, and especially as creatives, I feel like. Yeah.
yeah.
So closely related to this first not is that realistic creatives are not assuming. And
Mm,
I think sometimes, when we say demanding and we give some of the examples, you're like, oh, of course I'm not like that. But I don't know. I feel like this one might be a little bit harder to, or I guess I should say this one might be a little bit easier to slip into. So
mm,
here's an example from the writing world, and this is geared specifically toward a real life scenario for indie authors, okay? Just because you wrote a book does not mean that your local library or bookstore is going to carry it, okay? Don't just assume that they will. So first, you have to do your due diligence to produce a high quality book. Okay, we've talked about that before. If you spend more than a second in the publishing world, you're going to hear that many times. Okay, it should be carefully edited. You should have a professional, genre appropriate cover. Next, you need to do your research on the library or store that you're pitching your book to. So, for example, if you write erotica and you walk into a family-friendly bookstore with a ton of children's book displays scattered around,
And you
you
don't see a black curtain.
yes, and there are no black curtains in a hidden back room, okay? You need to just walk right back out. Unless, of course, you have some children's gifts to buy, which is, we want to support our local indie bookstores. But the thing is, you don't have a customer base there. Okay, and this is the thing that and I know that sounded like a really ludicrous example, but I actually have heard a bookseller give this exact example from her bookstore. So this is not completely out of my crazy brain. But I mean, it's really crazy. I mean, why would you go into a bookstore that you know doesn't sell to your readers, right? That doesn't even make sense for you. So it just takes a little bit of research, honestly, to know if your local library, if your local bookstore, if that's a place for you. Or let's say that you go a few towns over. I've been to bookstores over a few states now, and I do my research ahead of time. I just don't walk in cold. A lot of these are people that I've contacted before I ever walk into their door, or I've been going there for a long time. It's one of the two. So when it comes to libraries, some are supportive of local indies and indies in general, and some are not. So once again, with both of these scenarios, with a little bit of research on your part, you're going to know which way your libraries and your bookstores go. Other things is who you have your books up with, what distributors they're available through, because there are some bookstores especially, they're not going to order through if you're only with Amazon. So, you just need to know where you're wanting to market to make sure that you have everything set up right. And you need to know that before you walk into the store with this whole giant packet and this plan in mind that, oh, it's going to be wonderful, they're going to carry my book. It may not work out. And just a little bit of research ahead of time, you're going to know all of these things. So finally, if your book's good quality, it's genre specific, you've got it available for purchase through the right distributors, and the library or bookstore is open to local indies, and in the case of the bookstore has the right customer base for your book, then you need to pitch your book to them. You can use ARCs, you can use advanced information sheets, you can use other marketing tools, you can use, even just use your imagination and come up with something completely out of the box and new and exciting that they'll really respond to. But the thing is to not assume, and that's the big thing. Don't just assume.
Yeah, and we have a lot of writer experience with that, but it has to be the same with other creative mediums and how you want to present that. Whenever you are trying to pitch something to someone else, you just got to do your research on who you're sending it to, and not only your physical location research, but also your online research. So if there is if there's a Facebook group or a website or something like that that you're trying to get on and get involved in, then knowing, who is involved there, what their audience is, what they sell, their names by chance, and maybe even like a bit of their bio, and to see if there's some sort of commonality that you guys have together, that's going to go a long way whenever you're sending them your art or telling them about yourself, because they know that you cared enough to do that research, and that you are professional enough to do that research. So you got to do your homework, and you got to be professional. Which leads us to our next characteristic. That would be that a realistic creative is not unprofessional. We've already been talking about how writers' books need to be professional. They need to be edited with a proper cover design and all of those things. But being professional comes through in how creatives interact online and in person with other creatives as well. So not just your product, but who you are and what you present into the world. And so, with industry professionals and with potential influencers or clients and customers, you really need to be presenting yourself in a very professional way and not unprofessional. Um, so, for example, like bashing or shaming a fellow creative on your Twitter feed, that would be unprofessional, and you would probably want to consider not doing that. Um, another thing.
So true.
I mean, we're saying that tongue in cheek, but also we see a lot of this happening online, and it kind of breaks my heart for that artist because yes, there's so much of ourselves that we put into our art and into our product, and when we're hurt by what others say about it, then we kind of want to be defensive and lash out a little bit as well. And I get that; that's genuine, justifiable feelings. But you don't really want to burn any bridges, and you don't want other people in the professional world to see you lash out that way because they think that that's all they know of you. That's all they know of you. They don't know that you are super kind and have an empathetic heart and, help your senior citizen neighbor to mow our grass every week. Like, they don't know those things about you, okay? All they know is that you are really ugly to that other person and they don't want to work with ugly people. So, that's how it can hurt you in that way.
I think
But
one thing, and I just thought about this, but I think this might be a good thing to keep in mind is some people may only see 240 characters of you.
mhm, mhm.
So whenever you post something, if you just keep that in mind, if this is the only thing that someone sees of me, is this a good thing or not? Just a little checkpoint for you and for me.
That's that's a really good, like, if you could just ask yourself that every time you post, especially if it's when you're, like, hesitating over that little go button, it's a good thing to say or a good thing to ask yourself. So, another example would be if you walk into a bookstore and you start telling all of the other people who are shopping at that bookstore that you can actually get that book cheaper on Amazon, um, it's that's probably a little unprofessional. And it will not win you an opportunity to have your book on the bookshelf if they ever hear you. So just throwing that out there, guys. Another thing is how you present yourself physically as well. So if you are invited for a speaking opportunity and you show up in inappropriate clothing, like holes on your shirt and shorts that are up to your yin yang, think.
I so love that you said that.
I'm really tired.
You are getting
Caregiving is
truth, people. We said candid chats and we meant it.
That's what we meant. Like, caregiving is hard, and that's what I'm doing this week, and it's almost over. Um, but but yeah, like, unless it somehow ties to your brand and your art, you want to make sure that how you show up is the best of up to the best of your ability, and yeah, yeah.
So some of our examples for unprofessional might seem a little silly, right? But y'all, we have seen things, okay? Let me just tell you. I was in an independent bookstore in New Orleans when the friend of an author demanded that they put up flyers for a book event at another location in town, assuming that, okay, so we've got demanding and assuming already, assuming that, of course, they'd want to talk about this book event where the book sales would not benefit this particular bookstore in any way. Talk about unprofessional. Okay, so we got all three right there. So you have to think past the end of your nose, so to speak. Think about what you say and how what you say and do will affect others in a specific scenario. Okay, it's just thinking before speaking, thinking before doing. It's something that we should be doing throughout life, right? Not just in these things. But anyway.
I have to be reminded of that all the time, though.
True. Don't we all, though? I mean, really. We really do.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
We have come to the final thing that realistic creatives are not. and that is that realistic creatives will not be quitters. So remember, again, we talked about it takes many decades, many years, whatever, to become that overnight success. Realistic creatives know that. And to make it through those decades, they know that they can't quit. Let's say that an author published one book. They made a grand total of 5 sales and they got no reviews. Okay. Should they quit after 6 months? Absolutely not. Okay. Instead, that author is going to, if they are a realistic creative, they are going to utilize all of the characteristics that we talked about last week about being a realistic creative. They'll be persistent, realistic, creative, patient, and both organized and prioritized.
I like how you summarized last week's episode in like half a sentence. That was great.
Every now and then we get that right.
Yeah. So now that we've talked about like who realistic creatives are and are not, we're ready to look at a few tips on how to be one. So that's going to be the next episode. Or do you see what I'm sorry, guys. I know you were probably like, yes, let's get into it. And you got to wait a couple of weeks for that one.
It'll be worth the wait.
It will be. It will be worth the wait. So we hope that you can join us next time as we share how we can alter our mindset to be a realistic creative without wrecking our dreamer status. And so that's so important to Joy and I. We want to keep the dreams alive, but we also want to be realistic in the meantime. So until then, how about a QWERTY challenge, Joy?
Yes, I think we are ready for that. So, over the next few weeks, we challenge you to think about the 4 things that we've mentioned realistic creatives are not. Okay, we've said demanding, assuming, unprofessional, and quitters. Consider your interactions and experiences in the past. Have you been guilty of any of these things? Don't worry if you have. Okay, simply look to your future opportunities with a determination not to make the same mistake. I mean, a big thing is just recognizing when there's a problem and then taking the steps to change it.
Yeah, for sure. And if you would like to see a realistic creative in action, you can sign up for the QWERTY Writing Life newsletter. And Joy had a beautiful write-up. It was her week for a note. And she had a beautiful write-up about how Hurricane Ida kind of affected her creativity and how she had to be realistic about what she was doing in her creative professional life. So well done, Joy. I enjoyed that so much. Not that, just the vulnerability and the honesty of it. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. There are lessons in everything. So
everything, yes, and it, even more so than 2 years ago. Even like I see how everything kind of weaves together into our creative, our personal, our professional. Our circumstances. Everything is just weaving together. So I think you wrapped all of that up beautifully in that note. So well done, you.
Thank you. Oh, that was sweet. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us, and I hope that this has been an inspiring episode. I hope that this series is being helpful for you guys, and we would love to hear from you. So be sure to send us an email, let us know what you're thinking, and have a great week.
Go make something.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope this episode encouraged you. Like all creatives, we thrive on consumer recommendations. So, please consider leaving us a review and sharing our podcast with your creative friends.
If you'd like to continue this conversation, visit us on our website at QWERTYWritingLife.com or on Instagram at QWERTYWritingLife.